Here we go. Very, John, you really do look like a special, like celebrity. That move, you got the hair trimmed. You're looking svelte. Yeah, very nice. Um, and here, let me screen share the big pick for
Oh yeah.
bum bum bum. There's our team. There's our team. At long last. Yeah, so if you guys want to adjust any colors of any of this, of course I can do that. But
No.
this is what I was able to come up with.
I
Donna,
like that I'm short.
what's that?
I like that I'm short.
Because I thought in my memory, like that was something that we had talked about, was how you're somewhat small. But I'm glad that worked out. And you said you painted over the white one's shield, and you said some kind of natural thing. So I just chose, and I chose white because that would have been the kind of paint that was available in Rayuna.
Thank you.
You know, it did raise questions about like, how do you carry a longbow over long distances? I think you probably take the string off.
Yeah.
Right? Is that right, Jan?
Yeah, you have to take the string off, otherwise the bow starts to take a set. So you want your bow to stay flat when it's not being used.
So it keeps its tensile. It keeps its
yeah. In general.
Yeah. So but that's hard if you got, you're adventuring overland and all of a sudden you encounter, I guess they got pretty fast at stringing their bows. I guess if you were a pro, you could string it really fast.
Yeah. I bet there's a way that you could carry it where you could maybe strap it to your backpack or to your quiver, or perhaps you would actually just carry it with if you had a spear or something, or your shield, just carry it
like in a bundle,
something. Yeah,
it did raise that. Anytime I make these drawings, I'm always thinking about like, I bet people didn't really walk around with their bows slung over their shoulder like we see in so many fantasy drawings.
Sure.
But at least Taimi's ready to go, ready to take a shot there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so there's our gang. And where was the other one? Sorry, I was trying to get back to, there we go. And there we are. And you all have, after a long day's journey, have made it to the top of this ridge right here, camped on top of that ridge. It's a good vantage point there. So when morning rolls around, you can actually see pretty well. I think in the mornings here, there's the low areas between the hills are kind of misty. But by the time when the mist burns off, you have a pretty good view across the landscape there. It is somewhat heavily wooded, kind of more heavily wooded than it looks like on this map. So there's plenty of stuff that, it's not like bare landscape where you can see every little detail. There's plenty of places for things to be obscured and hidden. But you have a good view towards Mount Tarkailia. And from here, looking back towards Rayuna in the morning, you can maybe see a hint of smoke, but you can't really make out, at this distance, you can't really make out much more than that. You can see the glitter of the river there, but the village itself, you can't, it's so far away, it's not quite visible.
Like a normal hint of smoke, just like
no, it's in as soon as you guys left town, it was attacked and burned to the ground. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, nothing That's unusual. Nothing unusual about the smoke. And I'm marking off a day on the calendar. It's midsummer when that mist burns off. There's just a few clouds in the sky, and it's a warm, sunny morning. So P.S. is still, he's like, super sore from yesterday's hike, and makes a few self-deprecating comments about how out of shape he's been since during that period of time when he was just stuck in town, not getting a lot of activity. So there you are. What's next?
I guess the question is, yeah, where do we want to go? How far? What are people curious about exploring in these lands?
Well, we've talked about, heading at some point towards the coast to see if we could meet up with any towns over that way, right? But it would be good to know something of this area between these rivers and maybe what lives here and just explore the mountain a little bit. What were those rumors we had? The people who worship the mountain as a god.
You guys have heard stories about that, that somewhere there are people that revere the mountain. Yep.
So there's something there. And then also that the mountain itself is known as the Watcher. So it's not just that area. And also that there's those crabs that are known as the Watchers too, right?
Yep.
Freshwater crabs. Who's ever heard of that? That's just crazy.
What if we were to do something like that? Like go up to the river around the base of the mountain, maybe up.
Yeah.
And then kind of peace out, and then heads towards the coast.
Yeah.
Or is there interest in doing the Cold Lake jaunt?
I think we probably know about Cold Lake, as its reputation from the back in our early days was that it's great fishing up there.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, it was usually when people go up there, it's like a day-long fishing trip where they head out, or actually overnight fishing trip usually, where people head out and then spend the night and fish and then come back the next day. And without fail, when people come back, they are laden with fish for salting and putting by. So that stretch of the Little River up to Cold Lake, it's true that Reunions are fairly familiar with that.
Because we don't have any evidence to the contrary, I just don't know if it would be worth our time to do like that sort of thing. I don't know if we need to comb this place.
Yeah. Donna, do you have any other thoughts?
I guess the first one seems good. Yeah, that's not a strong opinion on which way we go, because it's all unknown.
Yeah, I think John's route is a good one to start as a basic plan, and then I think Paiviki is curious about these rumors, and it'd be good to know if there was anything like the River King, that lived up this way, or the Beast, or anything like that. I think she has in her back of her mind, I don't know if I've expressed it, but just this idea that if we do need more backup, like allies, what if we could find a supernatural ally or creature of some kind that might be able to help us in the future? That's where Paiviki's mind goes. Maybe something with fewer tentacles, but
Great. So
are we high enough that like we could make some sort of roll to see if there's just like in like this area, like anything noteworthy beyond just like trees and forest?
Sure, that's a fine answers roll. If you wanna spend the morning, like maybe Taimi's like, what is Taimi? Does Taimi have like any kind of hot beverage, or is it like cold meat? Like, what's Taimi's breakfast look like?
I think that there's like an herb that she crushes up into hot water to make like a tea, and it gives her like this, like, you know, jolt. It's like a coffee or a tea or something. But she uses it for her to keen her senses on early morning hunts. And I think that she's probably just like at this elevation, probably testing out her longbow, probably like, you know, taking an arrow and maybe shooting to like just to like get a feel for what this new arc is going to be.
For over great distance. Nice.
Yeah.
So just dropping a few arrows. Just
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
See, like one into the wind, one against the wind, one perpendicular to the wind. See, like, okay, like at full length, this is like how I should expect. You know, trying to recalibrate my brain.
Yeah.
Perhaps favoring it as a new favorite weapon.
And then going to look for your arrows, I suppose.
I mean, sure. Like, I mean, I was just banking on the fact that they were like obscure ammo.
Yeah.
I have to roll poorly. I guess maybe if I roll poorly on my check, maybe I'll be penalized.
Oh, you mean if you on your financiers check?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're doing that. You've sipped your tea. What kind of is it, like a little ceramic cup or like a kind of tin cup, or how do you take your drink?
I feel like ceramics, metalworking isn't. I think that's
at the market you can find things sometimes, but in town there's not a whole lot of that.
Yeah, I think that with the red cap, you know, Raymond has really figured out the ceramics market.
Okay, great. So you have a little cup that you're drinking out of. And you're scanning the landscape, looking for anything interesting or unusual.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that sounds like a financier's roll with either intelligence or wisdom, depending on whether you're sort of studying carefully or sort of sensing and discerning.
I will gladly take intelligence.
Okay, great.
And I rolled a 7.
7. Did you guys get a +1 forward because of sleeping, having a good rest? I don't remember. Anybody write that down?
You know what? I think.
About it.
Oh, I don't have a note about it.
Okay, I think maybe you just took the.
I might have still had stuff to heal. I don't know.
Instead,
right, that still would have only been an 8.
Right. Okay. Right. It would have been 8. Okay. Yeah. So from that vantage point, and you're looking kind of all around, or just mainly to the east?
Mainly to the east, because I know that we're going to go north in this proposed route.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't really see. You know, you're you see some areas that look like, you know, there's some boulder falls. There's like some serious rock falls that you kind of pick out. There's a moment where on like a pale gray rock face, you see several dark shapes moving, which you kind of assume might be these watchers that people have mentioned, the crab creatures, because of the way that they're moving. In your hunter's eye, you kind of, they're definitely not human. They're kind of like, you know, they kind of move rapidly and stop, and then move rapidly again and stop. And then they disappear over a ridge. So you see that. You catch a glimpse of some more of the red deer that you saw yesterday. But beyond that, you don't.
Okay.
From this viewpoint, you can't really figure out much more than that. So you'd have to investigate further in that direction too.
Sure. Yeah. No, I'm satisfied.
Okay.
Did I get enough? Did I get a good enough look at those crabs to kind of maybe have a somewhat okay guess about how big they might be?
Yeah, your estimate. I mean, you've got a hunter's eye, and you're really good at gauging distance. These creatures, you're gonna guess they're about like the size of like a golden retriever, like a medium-sized dog.
Oh, okay.
They're not giant. They moved kind of strangely, right? Like you're not trying to think if there's any creatures that you would have encountered that reminded you. They moved in a kind of erratic fashion, not
Yeah.
something that there was no kind of rhyme or reason to the way that they're moving according to
Maybe
your
like a
instinct.
jittering lizard or something, or
Yeah, it was like here and then over there, and then two of them came close to each other and then like moved away. But really, from this distance, they're just like little dots on the landscape. All right. Anything else? Any other business before you guys head off?
I think that Paiviki is just, she's still got her nose in her book, and she's probably taking part in some sort of herbal tea that's around, but otherwise she's pretty distracted. She's working on seeing if there's, she's practicing the words of, reading the words of the magical script and trying to figure out those spells that are in that book still.
Okay. Let's actually start a start a thread for that so that you can actually make some progress towards that.
Okay.
We can even call that a project that you're working on the road.
Yeah, and if she fails the roll, maybe she falls into a hole because she hasn't been paying attention.
Okay, so let us start a project. If you would make a note and keep track of this.
Okay.
Okay, so you got all the supplies you need. How many work weeks will it take for you to reach your goal? Okay, so we're going to say, and this is studying the wizard tongue so that you can interpret spells written in the wizard tongue. Is that right?
Well, I think I did some of that already. I learned Porista's Lock of Mud.
Okay, so you're studying specific spells at this point. Is that right?
Well, yeah. I mean, you can judge that as you think it's appropriate. But you said there was a book with 4 to 5 spells in them, 2 with the word demon in them, and one that was Porista's Lock of Mud. But yeah, if she needs to study the language more in order to be able to learn those spells, then that's what she's doing.
Okay. And I'm going to say, each spell is 5 progress. And there are, I'll look up how many spells there are, but we know that there's at least 1 in there. If you roll, just to give you an idea, if you roll 10 or higher, you'll get 3 progress on that thread. So in as few as 2 days of studying on the road, you might be able to learn a spell, but it might take longer than that.
Okay.
And this would be the ability best suited for that is probably intelligence.
Okay. Should I roll that?
Yeah.
Okay, so she got with her +2, she got 11.
Great. So you get to mark 3 progress on that first spell. Was that one of the ones that had the word demon in it? What do you think?
I think she's probably saving that.
Okay, she's going to hold off on learning the demon spells. Great.
Yeah.
So before you go to bed at night, by the light of the fire, and when you get up in the morning when everybody's getting ready, you're spending your downtime studying this book. So we'll just remember that that's happening, and every day you get to make a roll for that.
Yeah.
Great. So
Wait, is that a daily thing? Normally it's a weekly thing, right?
Normally it's a week thing to do to work on a project. I think because it's just specific spells that you're trying to translate or trying to interpret. I'm just gonna make it that you can get through, possibly learn a spell in 2 days, but if you roll poorly, it could take as long as 5 days to learn one of these spells. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, it's these all hooked up to the cart. This next way forward here, if you guys are heading towards the river, who's actually the driver? Who's in charge of Itzy out of all you guys?
Oh, just also remember that there's no cart. We just brought Itzy.
Oh, thank you. God, yeah. In my head, I was trying to remember, how did they get the cart up that hill? Thanks. I was a bad GM. I let them just. Sweet. We talked about that, and Itzy on Itzy's own with the stuff lashed. Oh, I remember now. Right.
Yeah.
You rigged up some saddlebag rucksack type things. Great. Awesome. So even so, you've got this heavy pack animal with you, who can certainly climb certain grades. There could be sort of 2 ways forward if you wanted to, or even 3 ways forward. If you wanted to like take the high ground and always, periodically get up to a high spot so you'd have a good survey of the surrounding area to the west, you could go that way. You could also do that closer to the mountain this way, always kind of like trying to climb from ridge to ridge. Or the easy way forward would be to go down into what looks like a valley or series of valleys on the low ground, going forward that way, kind of through the middle there. Do you guys have a preference?
Where did I see the crabs?
The crabs you saw were like over here.
Okay. Taimi doesn't have a preference.
The big difference, I should say, is that low ground, you're estimating you can maybe make it to the river by sundown. High ground, ridge to ridge, you maybe would only make it like, this far, like 2/3 of the way there. So it'd be slower to go that way, but you'd have more ability to survey the surroundings.
Viki's got her nose in the book anyway.
So Viki's just like, whatever.
Going.
So this is between Taimi and Mirren.
I'm not afraid of getting stuck out here, so I don't feel a pressing need to get to the river by sundown. What are your instincts tell you?
I guess Muirin would probably take the lower ground path to sort of maybe have more like low to the ground experience of the area. Yeah,
for lots of trees to hide in.
Yeah, for some reason she thinks that like if there are people or other interesting like things to look to find, yeah, you might find more in the lower area.
So how's Taimi feel about that?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, cool. And who is it? Both of you guys together on point, kind of scouting ahead, or is it one of you? I forgot what our routine was.
I think it's probably Muirin, because if memory serves me right, it's a wisdom roll.
Oh yeah, and I remember Muirin is the one who encountered Varpu's camp. Was the first person to.
Yeah, that's
it. Right. Okay, great. So Muirin is leading the way. So you guys descend from this plateau into that toward that wooded valley there. Donna, would you please roll to set out and at +1, because Watcher's Climb is dangerous.
Okay. Ooh, I rolled a 4 + 1 is 5. Should I add 1 to that or not?
Even if you add 1, you still get it's just a 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that is something that you could, if you wanted to burn a luck on if it was a marginal roll, you could do that. But right now, it wouldn't make any difference.
Right.
Okay, will you roll a d6 for me?
Three.
Okay. So you guys descend. So you drop down from the plateau. You go up another rise, and then you're looking at this kind of a valley with many different kind of like side channels off of it, and you descend the last slope into that, and then you're moving amongst these trees, which are a mix of like pine and spruce and dwarf birch, and it's pretty dense, and there's a lot of rotten deadfall, and within a couple of hours, and because of the time of day, you've become pretty disoriented, actually. Perhaps partly because when you're in amongst all these trees and you don't have that perspective from above, it's harder to figure out, to orient yourself. So this is really just a question of losing time to sort of get back on track and figure out which way is the way forward. You don't want to, or maybe it doesn't really matter, like John said, if you end up off track, but you find yourself in a pretty densely wooded area, and there's a moment where Mirren comes back, and however Mirren would say it, but not sure of which way would be the direction that you initially set out in. You're not quite lost yet because you know generally where you are, but you are disoriented in terms of like knowing which is the right way forward. So how would you guys like to tackle that?
We can just make a simple corrections and hopefully get back on track. This forest is pleasant enough, though it does not have the grandeur or spirit of the Motherwood.
Definitely a younger forest.
Though it might be unwise to not assume that some spirit guards this place as well, she says, kind of catching herself.
So there's a pause. The Itzy stops. Tapias and Wirren and Taimi are discussing the situation, and Paiviki is lost in her book.
I was thinking, I think she gets pulled out from what Taimi just said, and Paiviki kind of looks around and realizes that they're lost. And she wonders, who is the spirit of this place that is watching over it? And that gave her a new question, and she was wondering if it would be possible to use magic to discern from where or from who the power, the hidden power in this area comes from.
Oh.
If she could sense it using Weave of Force.
Oh, wow. She's trying to find, what's the nature of that power? When you say hidden sense of power, is it like the stuff that the weave responds to? Is it part of the weave in a place where it might be particularly dense? Or how would you describe what she's looking for?
I mean, yeah, maybe the location, but also just the character of it. Like, who, if there is a watcher or watchers, who are they, and what do they, like, they're all more familiar with like the Motherwood and the character of the Motherwood and the character of the River King. But she's wondering if there is a hidden being hear who it might be if the being able to see the weave of force would be able to help her find it and know who it is or identify it.
Okay.
And being bold, she's not too scared of having it backfire and have them find her if she fails.
I'm willing to say that this is just to find answers using Paiviki's attunement to the weave, right? If you're looking for, it's kind of like reading the wind, right? It's up to you whether you want to do it that way, because it feels like Paiviki has this ability, this power to tap into that, and using it to do something is casting a spell, but just trying to like pay attention to it, I feel like is maybe just finding answers.
Yeah, whatever you think. I mean, I was imagining that if like a spell, if she failed, you have that spell chart of like, consequences. And
Yeah, sure.
what would the consequences be for a perception-based spell is kind of interesting.
Sure, if you want to go that way, that's totally your call.
That
would certainly be interesting.
But I don't care however you want to GM it. It doesn't matter to me.
What does it look like when Paiviki does this? Everybody's chatting. You look up from the book. You have those thoughts, and then what do you actually do to begin this? To ask this question?
I think it's kind of like she's looking all around and she's slowing down and she's kind of tapping into all of the weaves of force of like, okay, here's the weave inside of the trees and here's the scurrying of the animals and the life force that's moving out, and she's looking for those larger kind of like connections or tendrils that and like what direction they might come from, and if she can get a feeling of what that energy might what its personality might be, or what it's, is it trying to have dominion over this area, or is it
got it? Yeah, I think that's gonna be personality. That's gonna be fine answers with
okay. So is that
intelligence? Yep. Intelligence or wisdom. I think either one of those applies because you're studying, but you're also kind of tuning in. So either one would work.
Try intelligence. I got an 8 + 2.
Okay. So yeah, you're like, oh yes. So here I can see that there's that cleft over there. There's water flowing through there, and I can see how all the tree roots here are drawing the water up into there. I can see, you have this kind of growing sense of the lines that show the lives of small woodland creatures, and it's not like you can see what has passed here recently, but you have a sense of the activity, the life that's in the area. And then you go further from that and you see, what does the weave look like when it is part of like a rock, of a solid rock? Like, how does that look?
I mean, I think that one way that I have to expand my creativity here, but one way I was envisioning it was just kind of like seeing a filter of energies on top of or taking the place of what you normally see with your eyes.
Okay.
And that the rock, I mean, I think if she looks closely enough, all of it has a spirit or a personality, like an agency of its own. And the rocks are kind of like, they're both like collectives of things, and they're also individuals that are all kind of like, more like kind of closed in and quiet. But she can kind of sense them still aware and still sort of in a more distant, sleepy kind of a state. So a little bit harder to talk to.
Yeah. Great. So that's the sort of next level of perception that you kind of tune into. And then you're kind of like lost in maybe people having the conversation are looking over and seeing that. But so you're kind of focused and lost in that. Are your eyes closed during this to see this stuff or open?
I think alternately open and closed.
Okay.
Like she'll take a couple steps and then look at something, and then she'll kind of close her eyes to try to focus on it a bit more, and then maybe move a little bit and turn her head and then close her eyes again.
So you do get a sense at a certain point where, and this kind of draws you away from the rest of the group, and you guys see like Paiviki like steps a little bit into the trees away from you, and you do have, as you're kind of seeing all of this stuff, there is underneath it all or between it all, there is a kind of very, very faint threads flowing away, like if you were, as if you were downstream of something, right? So you're in the downstream of something that is flowing past you, and this is like you've gone to the surface life and you've tuned into the rocks and you know the air and the ground under your feet, and you're kind of paying attention to all of that, and then within that and sort of somewhat different from it, if you had to describe it in terms of color, it would be a different color. There are these very faint, almost imperceptible threads flowing away, and you have the thing you do sense is that those threads are they flow from a source of energy. If the weave comes into this world from somewhere, perhaps the only thing you can make sense of this is that would be what this is an indication of, is like the weave is flowing out from somewhere. And you're detecting just like the barest hint, and you do have a sense of them coming from a particular direction, and then past you, and then kind of when you turn and look back at your companions, these threads, I would say they're kind of like mostly low to the ground and kind of drifting away. So they're coming in from one side and then drifting off in a different direction. And then when you start to pay too much attention to it, they kind of evaporate and disappear. But it's only when you're holding your mind in that kind of in-between state of being attentive but not attentive that you're able to see them.
But if I were to open my eyes, I could tell which direction they were coming from. So Paiviki says, I think we should go this way. And she just kind of like puts her book in her backpack, and she's just kind of like heading off.
And what direction is that on the map?
You don't know because you're disoriented.
Oh, that's right. Taimi kind of shrugs, like, and I say to Muirin, I'm not going to pretend to understand what she sees or what power guides her, but at the maximum 2 days, you're going to hit a river somewhere. So either a river or a mountain. So we'll figure out where we are soon enough.
Okay, great. Awesome. So you're heading in that direction towards wherever these threads are coming from. You're headed that way. And this is going to be another set out roll to get to the next. This is actually going to be, so that happened late morning. And this set out roll will be to see where you, how it goes getting towards that, the source of these threads. And I'm going to have Paiviki roll that because.
Yeah.
I think at some point she does check in with Muirin and Taimi and say, tell them what she's doing.
Is it in a sort of distracted way, or like while she's paying attention, or does she like come out of her reverie and really focus?
I've seen something. I can see the weave. It's coming from over here in this area from all over.
And you described it as like a different weave.
Yeah, it's the source, I think, in this area, but it permeates everything.
I guess this is more a John Chittergen question than a Taimi question, but what was being described as like almost like a different type of weave, like the same sort of lines, but like a different color.
Yeah, and fainter, like really really super thin threads, if we're going to describe them that way. And whereas most of the weave actually looks like a weave, like life intertwining with life, these threads kind of move independently of that and kind of go in between the existing weave.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Although she doesn't say anything, this really comforts Taimi, thinking that there's like perhaps like an intrinsic, like absolute difference between the magic that Paiviki wields and other magic. Like if there is potentially different sources of magic, then that horrible thing that she had to endure, in the cave, and the experience that Muirin had with the hand, like those could be from an unclean source, whereas Paiviki source is clean. That's
unless you learn his demon spells.
Yeah, unless you learn demon spells.
Then you're in trouble. Yeah. Great. So, Jan, will you roll to set out?
Okay.
Or 2d6 plus 1 because it's dangerous here.
9 plus 1, 10.
Okay.
Let's go.
Complete the leg in good time. All right. So you're making your way through this pretty dense forest that I've already described to you, and it goes on like there's a point where you pass between two slopes that are quite close in, and it's kind of like a narrow passage. These rocky slopes that go up. There's on the left. There's like a pretty large rock fall where the boulders are so big when they come down together. There's space between them where like who knows what kind of animals could crawl in and out of there. And you're going through these woods in the low ground for hours, and then somewhere you're going to guess around. Well, by the position of the sun in the sky, it's around late afternoon. You emerge. There's the ground has been rising gradually, and so the woods have been sort of obscuring everything ahead of you. And then at the top of a rise, there's no trees, and you step out into a more open area, and you are looking up at Mount Tarkadia. So, judging back by what you remember from your campsite, and from this perspective, the mountain looks, of course, very, very different from down here on the ground close by. It doesn't have any of its silhouette that you're familiar with. It's just like these rising rock faces. You estimate that you're somewhere around here. So it looks like you went this way, and then this is the point where you got lost, and then you ended up over here. Okay.
Okay.
And Paiviki, you see the mountain, and there's this kind of ridge of from a distance it looked like snow or ice, and still that's what it looks like. It looks like this this very distinct kind of white jagged line moving down the face of the mountain. From your perspective, you're only seeing it, it appears and then it disappears over a ridge, and then you see it further up. And at this time of day, the sunlight is catching on it. And Paiviki, when you see that, you realize that that's definitely the weave is coming from there, from the mountain, and perhaps that this bright icy or snowy line up its face has something to do with that.
Yeah. The line that the ice coming down, this is where I saw the energy flowing from perhaps it is colder than the surrounding area.
You think there's some sort of power that lies up there?
I do. Something unique.
I would want to know whether there's a power, a malevolent power, this close to Rayuna. So Taimi's interested in going up, at least a little bit.
Okay.
Paibiki, what does the weave look like on the rocks here?
It seems to flow down along the icy ridge.
Yeah, you can't quite see it. The ridge is far enough away. You definitely have a sense that the stuff you've been following is coming from there. And when you're looking around and tuning in, you see that it's where you are now, it's kind of drifting in amongst the trees, and then it goes up around sort of behind you over the hills. And then, so it doesn't, gravity appears to have some effect on it. It does sort of hang low, but it can also go uphill away. And just from all of the signs that you've been reading so far, it looks like that they all point towards that. From this distance, you can't see anything coming out of it, but that's definitely what looks like the source.
Yeah. Like a river or a fog coming down from there. He points to it, and there.
So Taimi's in favor of investigating further. Is everybody else on board with that?
Yeah.
Okay. You're going to be able to get to basically the low point before sundown. And what that looks like is, so you emerge from the tree line and you're at the base of this kind of rocky ascent. There are parts of the mountain that are just like smooth slabs of rock over great distances, and then other parts where like ancient cracks have like fallen and become vast fields of scree. And from the point at which you decide you have to make camp, looking up, basically looking up towards like this point, the line doesn't come below that point, but right at that point, which is it's a climb from where you are, as the sun is setting, it sort of lights up that, it reflects off of the snow or ice or whatever it is in this like bright orange against the rock. It's very distinct and noticeable. So you're sort of right below the bottom end of it at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's time to camp, unless you want to push on or do something else before camping happens.
What's like the level of coverage on the mountain with like trees and stuff? Like, would we be like really exposed to the elements if we were to camp?
Right now, you're sort of just at the tree line, so you could camp here and be pretty protected. If you climb the mountain, it looks pretty exposed. There may be, in Taimi's estimation, there's probably places where you could find shelter here or there, but like it's definitely pretty exposed.
Yeah, I think we should camp here. I also don't know if we should be bringing Itzy and a tired Topias up here.
I'll be fine.
No, I worry more about the beast and whether the beast has the instincts and the footing for this sort of terrain.
Well, I don't think Itzy could climb that thing. I think she's good. She's good on these lower slopes, but I mean that looks too. She's not a mountain goat. That looks too steep for her.
Neither am I.
Well, we can talk about it in the morning. Let's get some rest.
Okay, campfire this time?
Taimi has no problem with campfire.
Yeah.
Everybody good with that? All right. Muirin, are you cool with that?
Yes.
Okay. Then let's have Taimi roll to pass the night, and you get +1 for having a campfire.
Just 2d6.
2d6 +1.
That's going to be a big 4.
Total of 4. Ooh, interesting. Ooh. Okay. So everybody mark a ration. John, would you please roll a d6?
I'm sorry, what did you say? The cat was being a little loud.
Please roll 1d6.
3.
Okay. Who has first watch?
I'll take first.
Okay. And you're going to be spending your time studying, I assume.
Yeah. I'm distracted. She'll be like studying, but then she'll like stop and remember where she is and sort of like look around, look up at the mountain, kind of squint at it, and then
back to the book. So sitting by the campfire, hunkered down, poring over these words. Okay, great. Well, actually, you guys end up having a restful night because Paibiki doesn't notice anything. Because Paibiki's lost in her book. So everybody gets to, including Paibiki, everybody gets to take the normal benefits.
it was such a good watch.
And so you can either heal. Okay, so I'm trying there's a new rule, which is the recovery, everybody has a heal rate, which is your constitution modifier plus your level.
Oh, wow.
And there's new character sheets that you're going to write that down on there. But right now it's your, so what level are you guys?
6.
So, and do you have a con modifier, Taimi?
No, I don't.
Okay. So just as an example, so Taimi's recovery is 6 because she doesn't have a con modifier. After a restful night's sleep, you heal a number of points equal to half your recovery, rounded up. So you'd heal 3 points of ability points or hit points. Totally up to you. Yeah, so it's a big change in the way that healing works.
That's hugely improved.
Yeah.
That's hugely improved because I was getting like 3 ability points after a week of resting back in Reuna? Or something. I mean, I was maybe even getting 1. I don't know.
Right, that full week you spent of recovery camping. That's right, you were camping out. Yeah, so we're just going to try that and see how it goes.
Okay.
Sure.
Maybe it'll feel like too much. I don't know, but
divided by 2, you said?
Divided by 2, you take your recovery and divide it by 2, and if you get a restful night's sleep, that's the amount of stuff you get back. Yeah, I was trying to reconcile day-to-day healing versus in-town healing and make those all kind of line up so that it's the same proportionately. So this is my current experiment.
Okay.
So you would take your level, divide it in half, and add any modifiers.
You take your level plus your modifier, your con modifier.
Yeah.
So what's your con modifier?
Oh, nothing.
Yeah. So in your case, and you're level 6, you apply the modifier before you divide by 2.
Beforehand. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And then you round up. And the other reason I am doing this is, as you level up, you're getting more hit points, right? But if your heal rate remains static, then you're only getting back proportionally a smaller and smaller amount each time you rest, right? Relative to your overall total hit points. So this is proportional to your level, and hopefully that'll like balance out that way. because it's not like, you know, you're getting bigger and bigger and stronger, but every night you heal the same when you were a weakling or whatever. You're trying to keep it commensurate with your level. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah, so you can heal up, or you can take +1 forward to the new day.
Okay.
And what happens in the morning?
I see no reason to delay. Oh, I guess I pull Paiviki and Weirin aside and say, the beast can't come with us, and with the crabs in the region, I worry that Itzy might get attacked if we were to leave her here tied up. But I'm also afraid that Topias is going to take it pretty hard.
You might be happy for the rest.
I think you should tell him. He respects you. I think it'll be better coming from you.
Yeah.
Or you'll be nicer about it than I will.
Vicky goes to Topias and
he says, when he sees you coming, he says, I know, I have to wait here with Itzy. It's okay. It's okay. I do need the rest. I'm super sore. I do not feel like climbing right now. I'll look after the camp. It's fine.
Thank you, Topias. We would not feel safe adventuring up there otherwise.
And what's the plan? Are you when are you planning to come back? Just so I know when to start worrying.
How does it look like a few hours climb, or
to get to the base, to get to that point that you see to the bottommost end of the line, that climb maybe a couple hours.
And to get to the top of the mountain might take all day.
Yeah, if you want to head all the way up, that's in your estimation, that is definitely at the least a full day's hike.
Yeah.
And you guys don't necessarily you don't have climbing gear, but you have enough, you just be searching for ways up.
Yeah.
For Weirin, not a problem. Weirin is super agile and can climb this thing like a spider, but and Taimi also pretty adept, but Paiviki is the one who's probably got the biggest challenge here.
Well, maybe she could stay and read. She could read.
Just send Weirin and Taimi up.
Read to Topias.
from the spell book.
Forgotten languages.
I mean, maybe Taimi's being a little flippant about this, but she says, I imagine that at the worst we'd camp overnight if we really found something up there worth looking at.
So back by plan A would be back by sundown, but if we don't come back, don't worry, that kind of thing.
Yeah. You asked like when you should worry, and it would be like, we'll light a fire. If we don't light a fire, like have a campfire on the mountainside between like tomorrow evening.
Tomorrow evening, you'll light the fire.
Yeah, if we're still up there by tomorrow evening, we'll light a fire.
Just to let us know. Okay.
Just to let you know that we're up here, we're fine. We found something, or there's something, of importance, that we want to make sure isn't going to F around with Reuna.
And what about a warning signal? What if you're not fine?
Maybe a fire with a big smoke.
Tobias says, I've been waiting for this opportunity. And he pulls out of his pocket, you've noticed that while you guys were camping yesterday, and he was whittling, and he pulls out of his pocket a piece of wood about that long, and he's hollowed out the inside of it, and there's one end of it is kind of got a scoop, and he's carved a hole in it, and he blows on it, and it makes like a whistling sound, like a flute, and he tosses it to Taimi, and he says, "Tie this to one of your arrows."
And it'll make that noise.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So if something goes wrong, fire that back in this direction in a high arc, and I'll hear it. We'll hear it, and we'll know.
All right. Just hide behind a tree when you hear it.
You're a good shot. I know you can overshoot the campsite.
Message for you, sir.
I have to contribute something to this expedition.
Oh, Tiny nods approvingly and puts it into her pouch.
Great. So a little Muirin and Taimi expedition.
Oh wait, no, Paivik, you gotta come. There's no reason to come if you don't come. Like once we get to those lines.
True.
It's true. Well, can Muirin sort of sense any danger around us? At least before we set off.
Oh, interesting. Wow. So sense danger is like usually imminent danger, right? Like you enter a place and you're like, wait a second. Okay, but that's totally cool. I think because you have that, I'm gonna let you find answers because you have if there was an immediate danger, like you guys were about to be ambushed or whatever, Muirin would totally know. But you can, I think, because you have that capacity, I'm going to let you find answers using that to see if you sense any kind of not so imminent danger.
Okay. So, yeah, something maybe is off or maybe not is off.
Yeah.
So find answers in intelligence, right?
It can be intelligence or wisdom. Or charisma if you're talking to people.
Okay. I'll do wisdom because I rolled.
Great.
I rolled a 5. So that's 7.
Okay. So you just take a moment, and for you, it's not like Paiviki's tuning in. It's just like, kind of like your ears prick up, and you're sort of just kind of tuning in to see how things feel. And you guys are, you've got all your gear on. You're ready to start off on this hike, and Muirin just pauses for a moment before you start. And something tingles, the hairs on the back of your neck stand up just a little bit, no immediate threat. And off to your right, off as you're facing the mountain to the east, you have just a brief passing sense that there's something bad over that way. Not like an immediate threat, but something disturbing.
You said to the east, like there, or like this direction?
That direction, that's correct.
Well, as long as Topias can protect himself, right?
He's got his whatever gear you got. He's got his shield and his he's well geared up. He's got a crossbow. Crossbow's loaded. He's gonna take up a perch on the hillside, the base of the mountain, so he can just look at all the tree line will be in full view. He'll keep an eye on Itzy as she grazes around.
All right.
Okay, so all three of you are going to climb?
Does Muirin give us warning of this hidden danger?
Oh, yes. And sorry, it's not so specific, but we should be careful and watchful.
Does Paiviki want to do anything with that information, or are you okay to climb?
I think I'm fine to climb.
So everybody's got their usual gear with them, right? Anything super, I mean, this is possibly a day trip, so you're gonna want to make sure, I guess whatever you have on you in your pack, so you guys have already all figured out, and that's enough to, and
Yeah.
nobody's over capacity, so.
No.
Yeah, so I think for this first, to get up to the bottommost end of that, of let's call it the line, I think the only person that's a roll for this is Paiviki, and it's really just to see how it's not, you're not going to fall and hurt yourself. What's at stake here is just some strength damage. It's just tiring yourself out.
Right.
So it's going to be a saving throw with strength to make this climb.
Oh, okay.
And you're strong, right?
I'm very strong.
Yeah.
I rolled a 7 plus 2, so 9.
Okay. I'm going to say that you just take 1 point of strength damage.
All right.
So you're the last person up. Mirren's the first, well ahead of Taimi. Taimi doesn't have, Taimi has to stop every once in a while and kind of like assess the next way up, and then is very, very super agile, 18 dexterity, right? And then Paiviki's huffing and puffing, hauling yourself up onto the next ledge and wiping your brow, and then looking up, and then you're the last person to haul yourself up and to the top of that cliff. And it's a total of about 2 hours. So it's not even noon yet, and you've pulled yourself up. And from this vantage point, you can see the line go all the way up that ridge and kind of zigzag towards the peak. And the peak is just against bright blue sky. And Mirren and Taimi are already kind of checking out what it looks like up close. And what it looks like is actually a crevasse in the ground, like a cut where you guys are. It comes to an actual point, and then it widens out to anywhere between 2 and 3 feet. And it looks like as you look up the hillside, up the mountainside, that it gets wider in places and then narrows down again. So it's this uneven kind of jagged crevasse, like as if the mountain itself had cracked, right? So you just picture this big crack running up the side of the mountain. And the edge of that crack is lined with ice, and so it's not snow, but it's ice, which is the stuff that was reflecting the light, and it has this white. It's white when you are up close to it. But what Mirren discovered, having gotten up there first and been able to investigate, is like inside the kind of mouth of the crevasse, when you sort of look down into it, and it goes down just into darkness. The ice gives way to what looks like crystalline formation of some kind. So it looks like the walls of this crack are lined with crystal, like very, very small crystalline growth. Like each little crystal head is maybe like a half an inch or an inch in diameter, sort of covering the inner surface of that. And Paiviki, when you haul yourself up, and this, when you were climbing the cliff face, you kind of lost the sense of where the threads were coming from. You're not sure why, but when you haul yourself up over and you sort of stand looking at this crack running up the side of the mountain, the stuff is kind of pouring out of it, like flowing up and away to either side. And from this vantage point, you sort of see that, and you can tell that all the way up the mountainside, this stuff is flowing out. And when you sort of turn and look to either side, you see it just kind of like drifting gently down the mountainside and away across Watcher's Climb.
Yeah.
To the south. And up here, without the sunlight reflecting off of it, everything has kind of a cool blue kind of cast to it.
Does the crack appear to be wide enough to descend into?
Yeah, it does. There are definitely areas where there's right where you are near the end. It looks like, as you look down, the kind of sides of the crack kind of come up against each other, and it's very uneven. But you're guessing by the way that it gets wider that you would be able to find a spot where you could descend into it.
Interesting.
And I tell them what I saw coming out of the crack. When we come up close to it, does it feel like there's cold emanating out of the fissure?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, fascinating. And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this mountain the alluvial source of the Little River?
Somewhere back, the spring for the Little River is somewhere back in the woods there. Yeah, I mean it could come down. Your assumption might be that it comes down off the backside, off the north side.
Okay.
That the drainage might come off of that side. But it's a combination of well, who knows? You've never been to the source of the Little River, but you can imagine from your experiences elsewhere that either it's got some kind of spring that's actually the source, or it's all runoff from all the surrounding mountains.
Mhm.
Or a combination of those things.
Okay. Yeah, this is interesting.
So everyone can physically feel the cold coming out.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's why there's ice. But
Yes, it appears that the ice crystals have formed as a result of that cold that's emanating.
So those little crystals are they seem to be ice on the inside of the crack, not rock.
The ice kind of the rock face is lined with these crystals, and then there's ice kind of in between them.
Okay.
It's like the crystals are growing through a kind of sheet of ice almost.
Are they do they look like ice, like a kind of colorless quartz?
Yes, they're very, yep, exactly.
Okay.
Paviki reaches down to touch one of the crystals.
Okay.
To
Yeah.
see if they feel different than she would expect them to, or
They're cold to the touch, but they feel as you might expect.
okay.
then it's ice.
Summertime, right?
Sorry?
It's summertime.
It is. It's midsummer, yeah. The rock, 10, 15 feet away from this crevasse, the rock is warm from the sun.
Huh.
But the sun is not melting the ice that's here.
Shall we, what do you think, Mirren? Can we go and find a way to look inside?
Climb further up the crevice.
Yeah, it looks like there's a spot up there. Would you do that?
Yeah, I'm surely curious to find what causes this phenomenon.
So I guess we'll hike up the mountainside a little farther and try to get to one of those openings.
To a wider spot where you might be able to descend. Okay. Muirin, would you make a saving throw with wisdom?
Yes.
You're about to do something really stupid.
6 + 2 is 8.
Okay. So you guys, you maybe climb 100 yards, and occasionally sort of checking and looking in, and it's always down maybe 5 or 6 feet. You see the crystal get close and tight. About 100 yards up, you still haven't found a place that looks like you can descend, and wherein you have the distinct sense that you're being watched.
Hey,
You sort of pause and sort of scan the mountainside, and you look there and you see a rock outcropping, and you look over there and you see this great slab of rock covered with kind of ochre lichen, some some stubby trees. You kind of scan the mountainside. You don't see anybody, but you really you feel eyes on you.
Can I sense danger in that rock outcropping direction? Specifically that direction?
Yeah, you get kind of a you don't sense that you're in immediate danger.
Oh, okay.
John, did you hear that part?
No, sorry.
Muirin senses that you're being watched.
Oh, me. Oh.
Well, no, all of you.
Get a good look.
But not in imminent danger.
Right.
Okay. Okay. And what happened when sorry, I missed what happened when Paiviki touched the crystals.
They're just cold, but they felt like you would expect crystals to feel.
Okay.
I should say that Paiviki, when you reach down there, you have this sense that you're reaching into. I guess what you realize is that, like, as you're reaching into it and you're reaching past the flow that's coming out, that this is a powerful source of the weave or connection to the weave, and that if any magic were to occur in the vicinity of this, it would be augmented by this power.
Ooh, okay. Maybe this is where we should set up shop.
So you made your way about 100 yards up. You had not found a place yet to descend, and that's when Muirin had the sense that you're being watched.
But you didn't discern like a direction of surveillance, just kind of that general sense that like someone's got peepers on us.
Correct.
From above your position.
Oh, from above.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I feel like if I did more sense danger, it's only if it's imminent threat. So maybe it's possible that whatever's watching us doesn't yet intend to harm us. But maybe somebody knows to discern something or can sense like some other kind of presence, like tracks or.
Are you asking Taimi to be a hunter?
Sure, I can make a intelligence roll.
I was gonna say it's not gonna be a wisdom roll, right?
It's not gonna be a wisdom roll.
Unless you're looking at Jackie wisdom.
I guess it would just be like a general, just a general check to see if there's any signs of passing sentience.
And you're studying, so that's intelligence. You're sort of scrutinizing the landscape.
Yeah.
There's very little, right? So you're not on like a earthy dirt ground. So like all the stuff that you use in the Motherwood, I mean, you know how to track animals across all kinds of terrain, but it's sort of different stuff you're trying to pay attention to up here. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So go ahead and roll to find answers.
7, actually.
Okay, so you're all kind of paused for a moment. Maybe Paiviki's focused on the crevasse, and Muirin kind of lets you guys know what's going on, and Taimi sort of scans the slopes. There's off to the right. There's a ridge that drops down, and then further past the ridge, there's this kind of area of loose rock. It looks like, and as you're scanning and looking in that direction, you see movement. But you sort of, you're like, is that like an animal of some kind? And it's gone in an instant, but you definitely noticed movement in that direction, and it was the distinct. It was something that was the same color as the mountain, like something that was essentially camouflaged, but you caught a bit of movement there, and you couldn't even say how big it was or what it was.
Yeah.
There's definitely something off in that direction, which is about another 100 yards off the mountainside, above you and to the east.
Okay. Something there. Just for a second, almost blended into the mountain. I almost didn't catch it. Could have been watching us, or it could have been grazing. It could be a beast, or it could be a creature. If we do, let us be careful as we proceed.
Hi. They seem, whoever they are, seem to know that we're here. And Paiviki steps up onto a prominent rock, and she wants to send her intentions out into the mountain and the surroundings if she can, and let whoever is observing them know that that we come in peace, and that we're visitors coming to see who our neighbors are.
You're projecting.
Yeah,
Projecting that feeling.
In these words, she says, "We come in peace," but she's actually using magic to try to get her words to get caught on the wind, and not only like audible, but just kind of like if there's a force that's not human or understanding of language, to be able to like send it out. I don't know if she's capable of that, but that's what she's trying.
That's a negotiate roll with charisma.
Okay. She got a 13.
Huh. Okay. So you so we're like off to the right a little bit. There's a rock table that goes out and then drops off, and it sticks up a little bit around the surrounding landscape. So Paivihi goes out there and sort of expresses that towards the mountain. Muirin and Taimi are scanning the landscape. Muirin's just like tuned in for any sign of danger. And Taimi, you're focused, of course, on that place where you saw movement, but you're also looking across the rest of the hillside. And there's maybe a minute passes after Paiviki makes this overture. And then it's as if, to your eyes, Taimi, the rocks themselves stand up. These shapes emerge from the mountainside, and you realize now that they were there all along, in full view, but they were so camouflaged their bodies were so matched to the mountainside that they were essentially invisible to you. About 6 of them suddenly, I shouldn't say suddenly, they sort of rise gradually as one, and 2 of them descend towards you. And
So these, can we tell now that these are like bipedal?
they sure are.
Oh boy, howdy.
So it looks like they've got some kind of like lichen or fungus draped around their body, which adds to their being able to blend in, and their flesh is mottled and has the as your eyes adjust to them and you're able to sort of distinguish them from the mountainside, their flesh resembles stone, but you can see by their breathing and stuff that it is in fact flesh. So 2 of them make their way silently, and they have a kind of, you can see they have sort of goat legs in a way, so they kind of like come down in this a strange kind of gait, but not making a sound, and they're both carrying these long kind of spears or javelins, and they come down, and 2 of them are facing Paiviki, and one of them speaks. Gosh, and I'm gonna say, Muirin, you actually understand them. Well, I guess what you hear is kind of a broken. You can make out what they're saying. It sounds strange to you, and it's like a it's like some combination of the Elvish tongue that you grew up with and ancient Haivami. So there's like some in between language there that they're speaking.
Have you said ancient Haivami in the past?
Have what?
Have you mentioned that second language?
No. This is I think because of Muirin's travels and Muirin's background, you've had some experience with it. But you guys haven't encountered it before, no. So you're the only one that can understand them. And they say, return to the lowlands. You do not belong here.
Yeah, I'll ask Paiviki, does she want to speak to them more?
You understand them, Weird?
Barely, just enough to know that this is their land and they do not wish for us to be here, but perhaps they're willing to hear our story.
Yeah, now that we know that we definitely do have neighbors other than Devassi, I'm curious to know more. And I also look at Paiviki.
Yeah. I mean, I would tell them that we have no wish to interfere with them, but only to strengthen our bonds with neighbors. That we come from the motherwood of the South.
Can we see Rayuna from here?
No,
Oh,
you're a good 2.5 days. You can totally see, you know where it is from here. You can faintly see the two rivers where they might converge, but it's so far away that you can't make out right now.
And I think that she would say, we would ask if only if you would want to hear our story and share one with us.
So Mirren translates this.
Yeah, so she's trying to say it in Elvish, and then is that how that would work?
Yeah, you're more fluent in Elvish for sure. So if you speak slowly, you assume that they might be able to pick up. You try that. And when Paiviki's speaking, so when Taimi spoke, anytime anybody's speaking, both of them turn and look at the person who's speaking, and they appear to just not blink. So these strange pale yellow eyes just kind of like stare at you while you're speaking, and then Paiviki speaks and they both turn and they look at Paiviki, and then Muirin translates and they both turn and look at Muirin. And Muirin says what Paiviki says. And so you're saying we would tell you our story if you would hear it and hear yours in return, essentially?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
They sort of take a moment to look at each other, and then they both sort of step back and then go into like a weird kind of crouch on those strange legs of theirs. And when they do that, the ones up behind them, the four behind them, also sort of drop into this same kind of crouch. So they're not acting aggressive at all. And they say, tell us.
So maybe we want to tell them about Rayuna, or what would you want to share?
I mean, if we're telling the story, I don't know if they need to know. I think the gist of it is that, like, yeah, we're from a people that worship and honor nature, and our way of life has been threatened by a darkness to the east. And so we've been out exploring the land in search of, creatures that believe in the same sanctity of nature that we do.
I would tell them also about the people of Saltwall, even farther to the south, and the folks in the Elvish village that we met, and just how we've been kind of going around. And I guess also that we had that fight against them. And I think, I don't know, I would also probably add in about the River King, just that we encountered the River King, and perhaps the beast that came to, just tell them some stories.
Yeah, that's some.
And see if it sparks anything for them. Like maybe they have some, maybe that'd be interesting to them to know about those characters.
Yeah, so Taimi says her piece, and Muirin translates, and they both turn and look at Taimi, and they nod in this. There's a kind of acknowledgement in their nod that Taimi is very clear to you that they respect your position. They respect what you've expressed. It may not you get the sense that it may not match up with their perspective exactly, but they definitely understand what you're saying and they respect what you said.
Okay.
And then there's a back and forth where, you know, Paiviki starts to tell a story and Miriam translates in back and forth as they do that. And they're both very, very attentive. Eventually you do see them blink. They just don't blink as often as humans do. And there's like a, you know, there's the cool breeze coming out of the crevasse across you as you're sitting there on the hillside and the sun's moving through the sky and you're telling these stories and they're listening. Gradually, the four up on the mountainside descend one at a time to be within earshot, still above the two that are speaking to you. So they're kind of in a semicircle above you. One of them's on the far side of the crevasse, the other three are on this side. And they're just they kind of watch with kind of attention, not a whole lot of, no real reactions. Occasionally they might nod in acknowledgement or there's no real emotional reaction to the story that you're telling, but they're clearly intent on listening and really kind of paying attention. And they don't ask any questions. So there's no point where one of them says, you know, wants to clarify something you've said. They just kind of like listen. And every time that Paiviki speaks, they're looking at Paiviki, and every time Mirren speaks, they're looking at Mirren. Yeah, and so it goes on, you know, probably into midday or past noon. And I guess if Paiviki's sort of telling the whole tale of what's happened to you guys since you ventured towards the Cave of the Beast, I guess it ends with you coming here. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Us pushing back the darkness.
Right. So you've told them all about the Corkine and all of that. So you've done, and you're a little talked out. And they all six of them kind of like nod in recognition of what you said. And one of them, the nearest one, says, "You have traveled far across this world. We do not leave." And it says a word. "We do not leave Vilan Varskitikset," and he gestures at the. Well, you just know he doesn't gesture. You just know he's talking about this hole, this crack in the ground. We cannot, because we protect this place. And when you leave this place, we ask that you tell none of it. It is our duty to protect. And he says the word again.
Can we tell if he's talking? So is he talking about the power inside of the crevasse?
He seems to be talking about just the thing itself, the physical thing.
Mm.
Like that this is a physical thing that they are charged with taking care of. I guess one word you could use would be stewards. They've been somehow they are the stewards of this place.
Mirren wants to ask if there's just 6 of them or if there's more.
Oh no, more.
Mm.
There are more. We are many. These here are. We just are the. the walkers. And you take him to mean that they are the ones who sort of, at least today, they're the ones who kind of patrol the length of this crevasse.
Can I ask if they saw us last night or this early this morning? Were they watching us through the whole climb, or?
Yes. You get the impression that as soon as you kind of climbed up that cliff and got to the base of the thing, that they have been watching you since then. Yeah. Where will you go now?
I try, I figure out which way to point, and I kind of point that way, northeast to the sea, to meet more peoples and to hear their stories, to see how far the Colqueen's reaches, and to stem it before it can run to the west.
It seems for your world, for the lowland, that this is a worthy endeavor. Do they bring order or chaos?
They claim to bring order. That's the only truth that they claim to believe in. But in doing so, they smash the lives and beliefs of the people that they think beneath them.
They
like I don't know, I grab like just like a chunk of ice and I just like smash it on the ground, just like people who are the villages of this land are things to be taken to them.
They would impose order there, and by doing so on. Oh, I'm getting an echo. Is anybody else getting that echo? These guys got some weird voice effect on there.
No, I'm not. I mean, I'll try putting on.
I think it might have been Donna when Donna muted herself.
It might have been.
How's it sound now?
You sound fine. I don't hear. Yeah, I don't hear an echo.
Primo.
Is there a mic on your headset? Is that what's? Because your voice sounds different now.
Yeah, there is. There's one right here. Wow.
Yeah. So he says. I see. They do not allow order. They impose it. I've heard of this. We have heard of this.
Yeah.
If you go that way, and he gestures in the direction that you've indicated, there are others of your kind near who bring ill will to the Watcher.
How so?
Be aware. There were a people that lived in Yerkane who honored the mountain and lived in its shadow for years. But not too long ago, their place was overtaken.
Ruh-roh.
If you go that way, take care.
Can you tell us more about who overtook them?
You know of Vihainen, and I think that you all have heard of Vihainen, who is a god in you've heard rumors of. You've never sort of encountered anybody who, like, I guess they're just stories. Where you guys live, the stories of Vihainen are the kinds of stories used to scare children to keep them from doing bad things. But Vihainen is a god of destruction. A Havaman god, not a Korkian god. So these stories go back to your childhoods. And I guess I guess it would be Taimi in particular, because Paiviki was a more recent arrival, but I don't know if Taimi's afraid of things like that, afraid of the gods. And I mean, I know the Motherwood is like a spirit that, so when you hear the word Vihainen,
Can you spell that?
yeah, it's Vihainen.
Vihainen.
So, John, how does Taimi, what's the kind of emotion that name provokes in Taimi, given that this is a figure that was used, I think it might have manifested in a story as like a fire that tore through the Motherwood, or it's that kind of like out of control destruction, those kinds of stories.
Yeah. I think that Taimi is not inherently, or previously she has not been superstitious, but I think the double whammy of understanding that there's like different flavors of magic, some might be more malevolent than others, and also she is not in the direct vicinity of the Motherwood, and she gets great comfort and protection from that. I think that it like sends a chill down her spine, that she doesn't expect it to.
Yeah, so
I think
caught off guard by that.
Yeah, I think because in that brief moment, she like, there's probably bouts of her childhood that she didn't believe, or at least she wasn't scared. But in that moment, she like considers the possibility, and it scares her.
Great. Yeah, maybe there's maybe like that cold breeze off of the crevasse, like gets briefly colder as you have that thought.
My hands tense up around my unstrung bow,
And Paiviki says, so there are people.
There are people
who follow Vihainen.
Vihainen, yes, they have. They came to these lands not long ago, within one full turn of the seasons, and we don't go below, and he uses a word that you can only assume describes a certain kind of altitude on the mountain, referring to some natural aspect of it. He basically describes how they don't go below a certain point on the mountainside. They definitely never go down to the tree line. And that they've only observed these people from a distance. And that there was a community of people that lived on the east slope, sort of on the face, from the way he's describing it, it's the face of the mountain that faces towards where the source of the little river might be. And so he sort of, from his indication, it's like somewhere over in this area.
Oh, wow. It's when it used to be?
That there used to be a community of people that lived there until this other group, these followers of Vihainen, arrived. And these people, oh, by the way, these guys they call themselves the Hiisi. Hiisi. the residents, who they describe as kind of peaceful worshippers of the mountain itself, worshippers of the water, their community was overtaken by these Vihainin people, and the two, there's the these guys don't necessarily shake their heads, they don't have like these human gestures, but from their body language, when he's relating what happened to this community, from all six of them, there's like something that they do with their bodies that indicates to you that they are distressed and disturbed by whatever it was that happened to this community of people. So he doesn't really go into greater explanation, but it wasn't, you just get the impression that it wasn't good. And he says that they dwell there now, that community, the community of the followers of Takailia, of the Watcher, is no longer, and that now that place is inhabited by the Vihain.
That sounds right up our alley, team.
Do they cause trouble to your people?
They have not done so yet, but we know that they hold ill intent towards the mountain itself. But the mountain will be safe if they choose to go higher. If they choose to rise above its shoulders, they will be met.
Can Marin ask why they want their people to remain a secret from the outside world?
There are those, and he gives a glance in Paiviki's direction, a meaningful glance, who hunger for, and he uses some word that you don't, it's not ancient Haivami, it's not Elvish, but it's a word that, he's using these words occasionally that you have no idea what the origin of them is. And but you understand that using this word, he's describing the force that's welling up out of the crevasse. And he says, like, whatever his word is for the weave, it comes from here and flows out across the world, and he gestures across the landscape. And this is not the only place, but these places, when certain people learn of them, they want it for their own.
Vaibiki reaches into her pack and pulls out the bracelet of cold.
Mm-hmm.
And she's been dragging around for all this stuff, and she holds it out to him or them and says, "We found this in a cave of a sorcerer to the south. Do you think it came from here?"
So you pull that out and produce it, and when you do it, everybody sees this a sort of gust of ice crystals is drawn away from the crevasse and just kind of like gathers around the bracelet until it's completely covered in like a rime, like a frost, like a thick frost. And they have sort of no reaction, but that's a kind of surprising thing that happens. And they say, yes, that someone has taken the power from here and placed it in that metal.
And Paiviki says, "Well, I would return it to you then." And She hands it to them as the projectors of this mountain. Let it come back to its source.
So there's a little murmur among them, and the spokesperson stands up and steps forward. I take this from you with the thanks of the well, and takes it from you, and then turns to his people and calls out some kind of chant, and their voices kind of rise with his, and he walks over to the crevasse, and he like holds it up and says some words, and they repeat the words, and then he drops it into the crack. And as it goes down, there's like a kind of reverse, small little geyser of these kind of ice crystals, and it sort of disappears silently into the crack. And they all stand up, and this has been, your stories have been good. They will stay with us for many seasons. And do not take this the wrong way, but you are not welcome here. No one is welcome here.
I hope that someday that could be different. The forces that hold the spear to our necks might hold it to your neck as well. Someday I hope that we could be friends.
This day, this word, we understand its meaning. We have no equivalent. We understand what you mean. We are that. It is just this place where you are not welcome.
Oh.
You may consider us this word that you say.
Oh. Oh, okay. They literally mean this. Oh, well, where's their village?
Do you ask them where they live?
Yeah.
And he just gestures up the mountainside.
Okay. Well.
This is our home, and he just sort of,
Yeah.
He just sort of encompasses the entire upper part of the mountain there. So he's basically, just to make it clear, he's basically saying we're friends. We appreciate what you've done.
Yeah.
Good stories. Good story, bro.
Cool story.
Cool story, bro. But no one is allowed, to like come to this place.
To the crevasse, yeah.
To the crevasse, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I ask him in character how, if we want to see them again, to bring them word of the cultists.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Where would it be respectful for us to see you? Or allowed?
You. The thing that they make really clear is that like the crevasses, which they call the Wildung by Skitset, which Muirin eventually figures out by putting some stuff together that it translates to the shiver. As long as you steer clear of the shiver, anywhere else you show up on this mountain, they'll see you.
Okay.
So you just have to show up.
Okay.
And their people will know you're there, essentially. And it's just about 11:30, I think.
Yeah, we should
Right?
wrap
Yeah.
it up.
So if there's anything else you guys want to talk to these guys about, ask questions about before they depart.
Do you have anybody have any gifts?
That
Wanna
was a
give 'em
pretty good
some-
one. That was
Oh, you're right. You're right. What am I saying?
pretty appropriate.
Yeah, I was saving. I didn't know what to do with that thing for the past months.
Yeah, that's pretty ideal. I got goosebumps, dude.
The shivers.
Got some duck bumps.
I mean, I'm curious if we want to go down into that village again, if nothing else, just to hear their side of the story from like the gods of chaos. But you know, find out what happened. If we're interested in sort of making allies or protecting our borders, and these guys are taking over villages.
Yeah, I feel like that's an immediate disqualifier from friendship.
Yeah, I mean, I'm yeah.
Like, yeah, a group of humans that are treating the mountain with reverence and living in peace with the Hisi.
Right.
Is that I say that right?
Yeah.
PC.
I admire your kindness to consider them having a valid point of view, but you know, these are cultists that have aligned themselves with whether it be real or not, a dangerous god. And they're unrooting villages. I think that, you know,
Maybe he's just suggesting a little social reconnaissance.
yeah, I mean, surely we can go to tribe, maybe get some questions answered. Also, I think we're very tough, but I don't know if we could take on a whole village. So there's that too.
Maybe the elven goat rock people would help us if we did that endeavor. Either that, or they might try to stop us. They might want to stay hidden and not be involved. I don't know.
Yeah. No, you're right. Some level of reconnaissance is needed.
Okay, so you can return to camp and have that conversation on the way down.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Then we'll close out back at camp with Tapias. Everything is fine there. However, he did find you guys come back and he's like, you won't believe this. And he takes you about 30 yards east of the campsite. There's a depression in the hillside, and there are 4 skeleton of red deer, big red deer that are completely picked clean, with no sign of. It's unclear how they came to an end. Like Taimi, being the hunter, can't figure out. Like, there's no sign of a predator attack. Their bones seem like unbroken. It's just 4 perfectly cleaned red deer skeletons, and from the look and smell of it, very, very recent.
Oh gosh. Oh, well then, yeah, that throws me off.
Yeah. All right. So let's roll to spend the night. Everybody mark a ration. And somebody tracking Tapia's food. It's on the cart. Could you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And Itzy, this is still good grazing territory. So Itzy's actually finding grass and flowers and whatnot to chew on. So you don't have to worry about feeding Itzy. And we'll have Muirin roll to pass the night. You're having a campfire, I assume, right? Still a campfire. We'll just assume that's the default unless you decide otherwise.
Mm.
So that's 2d6 plus 1.
Okay. 10.
All right, everybody gets restful sleep. You heal your recovery rate, and you take +1 forward to the first roll the next day.
Ooh.
Let's make a note of that.
So you get to heal and take +1?
Yeah, when you get a 10 or higher, you get both those benefits. Another day on the calendar. And we'll wrap up.
Wonder if Mirren has any stories of these types of creatures in Elven lore, if they speak Elvish. But we can figure that out next time.
It must be. They must know more about the outside world than they act. But yeah.
Okay, so fighter / magic user, solve a problem with magic and solve a problem with physical prowess. You definitely solved a problem with magic. You got unlost by finding the mountain.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Did you solve a problem with physical prowess though?
No.
Okay, so when you're multi-classing, you have to do both those things to get the XP.
Whoa.
That's the drawback to multi-classing.
All right.
Thief, solve a problem with stealth or trickery.
No.
Okay. And fighter, John, physical prowess. Didn't really. It was more of an exploratory
Yeah.
game. Traits. Starting with Paiviki, bold for sure. Standing on that rock. Calling out to the mountain. Did you work any other traits? I'm just curious.
Not really. Yeah, bold and boastful is all she's got right now since she's new.
Right, great.
But
I mean, telling a long drawn out story about your adventures might be considered boastful.
yeah, that is kind of boastful.
Yeah, and then this crazy thing
we did this
happens.
and we did that.
Mhm.
Mirren, traits.
I tried to be respectful with meeting those.
Oh, for sure. You were the translator. Yeah. You were also very focused with your danger sense.
Okay, yes, that's true.
Yeah, so you definitely get an XP.
Excellent.
And Taimi.
I feel like I was curious,
Yes.
and I was on the border of getting irritable with them if they hadn't made it clear that we could see them again.
Oh, you were gonna, right. When they said you're not welcome, you're like, wait a second.
Yeah, wait it, like, come on. He's like, we don't get your word, friend. Whatever.
I thought we had something. We were ready for
Yeah.
something like.
They're just really protective of their goddamn crack in the mountain. It's cool, just away from the crack, man. Just step away. We can be friends. Did you make an exciting discovery? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of them. Did you overcome a difficult obstacle? I would say that negotiating with these folks peacefully was definitely that. So everybody gets XP for that. Did you acquire some memorable booty? No. Right?
We dispensed with some memorable booty.
Yeah,
we lost memorable booty.
Lots of memorable.
Does that count as stashing for Paiviki?
Ooh, totally counts as stashing. Good question. Nice. How much was
Wait,
that?
does it count as, wait, but would it count as stashing if it results in a mechanical function that would help us in some other way?
No.
I don't know if that was a mechanical function.
I just didn't know if,
You mean like something that we haven't learned yet, right?
well, if like the returning of the gift to these people have
Right.
now indebted us, not indebted them to us, but like given us a leg up in
your relationship with them, for sure.
in relationship with them, if that
Yeah.
counts as a
Yeah, but you could use that same explanation when we stash stuff in Rayuna to
Yeah.
like give towards the two towns' treasury. Like,
Yeah, no, I have no agenda. I was just asking.
No, I think it's a great question. Yeah, because you don't want to double dip. I think that if we had gotten XP from directly from something that we did in the stashing process, I would say, yeah, you couldn't double dip. But I also did not design this game.
Right,
who,
right.
who am I?
I think it's great because that was a very memorable moment. That's what makes it worth XP for me. Is that that was a really great way to get rid of treasure, right? Like to return it to perhaps its rightful stewards. I'm just trying to quickly figure out how much that thing might have been worth here. Okay, so we got a base power, and we got a minor. So that was a minor effect. I'm gonna. Yeah. Nobody gets XP because you round down. You have to divide by 3 and round down. I'll tell you that the total value of that thing.
Wait, why divide by 3?
Because it's the 3 of you in the team.
Well, no, Paiviki gave it.
Oh, Paiviki, still 0 XP.
Ah!
It's gotta be worth at least 100 silver pieces.
Man, I mean, we have more than 100 silver pieces. We should just buy a cold bracelet then.
If you can find one on the market, that's the real challenge.
Maybe one that won't adhere itself to your arm.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is it was kind of cursed. It was kind of like
Just a
double-edged bracelet.
I'm glad it served some function.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it serves a great diplomatic function for sure. That was an excellent application of that. Yeah, so that was that for wrapping up. Where are you guys at XP wise?
109. So 31 away from level 7.
Level 7. All right. And is it fair to say your next plan would be to investigate this? Oh, kitty cam.
Yeah. It's a wonder I get anything done here.
Cutie. So investigating this little outpost you heard about might be the next thing to do. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Good to know. And that's where we'll pick up next week, is with that in mind.
Woot.
Awesome.
Yay.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
And see you next time.
All right.
Good night.
Bye.